Yeah, so welcome everyone. Today's session, as you were forewarned in the email, is going to be looking at emotions and feelings and how, with mindfulness, we can start to get to know them and perhaps even make peace with some of the more difficult emotional experiences that come up. And this is nothing new for those who have been doing this with me for some time. We focus a fair bit on this, and it's a bit like our last session of allowing. It's really of the same ilk, but there's a nurturing quality that I want to bring into today's session, and perhaps even some exploration of insight that we might get from being able to hold these emotions and look at them a bit closer. That being said, as always, there is a little bit of a disclaimer, and that is we all have a threshold of emotional discomfort that we can operate within, and if we're too high or too low out of that window, then it can be very, very difficult to manage our emotions. And we've all been there, when we feel like we've perhaps lost control or sunk a bit deep, and lost access to the tools, to the toolkit. So it's about applying mindfulness, certainly a mindfulness meditation at the right time. Working with emotions that we can work with, that aren't too strong or too deep. So this isn't a magic wand. This is practicing in the arena of workable feelings and emotions. And if the emotions are, too strong or too deep at any given time, then something else can is a wiser option, whether it's talking to someone, going for a walk, doing something else completely is quite often recommended. But for those emotions within our threshold, within our working range, this is a beautiful, beautiful way to get to know them and to get to know ourselves a little bit better as well, with the view that that window will gradually expand as time goes on and we get better at dealing with the emotional perturbances, with the waves and the weather, as I've likened to it before, or likened it to. And again, this is about practicing in the field of a meditation, with the view that we're treading the pathways that are going to help us to respond to emotions in a more helpful way when we're doing other things, we're in our sort of normal daily lives. And essentially the first part of any of this is noticing, like anything to do with our mindfulness practice, where we're looking in and we're taking a real life snapshot of the current state of affairs. And usually if we're looking in at the current state of affairs, there will be some emotional component to that, or some feeling component to that. And quite often what happens, if that feeling component or emotion is unfavorable, is something we've either had trouble with before in the past, or we don't like, or we've been conditioned to avoid, or we've been taught is a bad emotion, then our tendency is to turn away. It's to push off from that emotion, or push it away, or judge ourselves for feeling it. And although that may be in some cases a short-term fix, it's not always the best way, and it certainly shouldn't necessarily be the default, because those emotions have got to eventually go somewhere. And it's when we switch off to those emotions that we switch off to other experiences in life as well. And conversely, when we tune in to the emotional landscape, when we start to accept and open that range, then we start to deepen our experience of life as well. Things start to come alive a bit more when we're more sensitive on the inside. So we must become aware. So we're taking a snapshot, a real life snapshot of what's occurring right now, and it might be a predominant sensation, it might be predominant mental activity, but usually part of that, there will be some sort of emotional component or some sort of feeling context. So what do we do? Well, my one of my favorite teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, he invites us to smile at our emotions, to bring a warm and compassionate heart to the emotion as it arises, as though it's a visitor, like the Rumi poem of the guest house. These emotions are visitors, and Thich Nhat Hanh treats them like children. So we can speak to it and see what it needs and offer it smile and offer it some love. And it sounds a little bit airy fairy, but it's a helpful gateway into this world of emotions, because certainly with things like anger, shame, jealousy, or some of the more sort of bitter tasting emotions, we avoid them and we judge ourselves for feeling them. So if we can go through the doorway of kindness, then immediately some of these emotions will transform and become more accessible. So we sit there with the emotion as best we can. We get to know it, whether it's here on its own, whether it's with other emotions. We bring a kind of compassionate awareness, understanding that the whole spectrum of human emotions is what actually connects us to other humans. It's quite often feels the other way round. If we get angry, or especially something like shame, we immediately puts up walls around us, obviously in our own head, our own experience. But actually, when we look a bit closer, when we turn towards them, we recognize that this emotional range, this emotional spectrum, is what makes us human. And that's something that we all feel. We all know what it feels like to be angry. We all know what it feels like to be embarrassed. And it's the raw experience of that we're going to take a look at today. And we don't have to inquire into these. We can just give them space, and that is sometimes enough. But other times, there may be some benefit to looking at some of the other parts of our experience, say maybe looking at what kind of thoughts might be fueling an emotion like this. Not as a way to get rid of the emotion, but as a way of understanding why it's here, because each of these are messengers. They're our body's way of telling us something, and usually telling us what's going on in the subconscious. So we only get a little glimpse of what's happening in our minds with the conscious mind, and most of it is happening unconsciously. And we can learn what's happening in the unconscious through investigation with our emotions. Anxiety is a common one for me that comes up quite regularly. Sometimes there's an obvious reason, sometimes there isn't. But sometimes I can sit with that feeling without wanting it to go away. It's usually accompanied by some sort of physical sensations in the chest, some certain types of headspace, a little bit panicky or constricted. But if I'm able to sit with that emotion and perhaps look at some of the thoughts or the beliefs underpinning it, then that gives me some insight as to why I might be feeling that. Maybe I'm inhabiting or operating from a part of myself which believes that I'm not good enough, which believes that I'm not capable of managing the outcome of the situation that I'm imagining happening. And in that moment of noticing that I'm sitting in that place, there's an immediate dissipation of tension in my body and mind because I'm seeing it for what it is. Now, we're not negotiating with that emotion as in if I sit there and hold this emotion, then I want to feel better. It's a natural byproduct of being and sitting with the emotion with acceptance. So we can't bypass this, otherwise we will stay in tension. So I think I've said the disclaimer which I wanted to say. We're working within our own tolerance. So any experience which feels too much, and you'll know it's your own intuition, then feel free to navigate the meditation in your own way. My words are just guidance, they're not instructions. They're just here to light up a way. If you want to come that way, then do. If it's not right for you, go your own way, or focus on something completely differently. So, I think if you'd like to start to make yourselves comfortable, we're going to do a meditation. We will settle down with the breath. We'll do a little bit of a body scan, and then we will just rest. And it's in the resting we'll start to explore what's happening, what's going on in our emotional landscape. And I've said this already, but it's worth repeating. If I'm moving through it at a slightly different pace than what you need, then please feel free to stay where you are if you need a bit more time with that experience that you're working on in that time. Don't feel rushed through by me. So thanks for listening. Hopefully you've all found a comfortable position and we can begin the meditation. So wherever we're sat, then can we can we give in to this position, allowing our bodies just to settle a little bit deeper into contact with whatever we're sitting on. It's a way of giving in. Just offering ourselves a little bit more to gravity. Noticing the feet if they're on the floor. Noticing the weight of the feet touching the ground. And noticing the stillness of the ground underfoot. Noticing the stillness of the earth. And becoming aware of the breath of breathing. And setting our intention to focus on the breath. That right now everything else can wait. This is our time. It's our time to practice. So we're committing our attention to the breath. Knowing full well that it doesn't take long for thoughts to take over again. And that's absolutely normal. It's absolutely okay. It's part of the meditation. And whenever we realize that we've become lost in thinking, our only job is to notice it in that moment, starting again with the breath. No need to judge, no need to beat ourselves up. We just start again. And we focus on the breath where we feel it the most in the body. Focusing on the sensations of the breath. Noticing how it feels to breathe in and to breathe out. And we can zoom in on the breath, zoom in on the place where we feel breathing the most. That might be the nose, the throat, might be the chest or the belly. And we do our best to hold our awareness in this area and just observe the changing sensations of the breath. That the breath is merely a continuous flow of different sensations. And when we focus on the breath in this way, we may notice that it softens, that it deepens, that it lengthens. And we can gently encourage the breath to balance so that the inhale and the exhale are of a similar length. May be helpful to count to 3 or 4 on the inhale, and then roughly matching that on the exhale. Or it may be more useful to visualize the waves coming up the beach and falling away from the beach. So we're breathing the waves up the beach and breathing them out back into the sea. This is very natural rhythm. There's plenty of space here to notice what it's like to breathe in this way. We're just riding the experience of the breath. And remembering there are no wrong turns here. There's just this meditation and how it unfolds moment by moment. So if we get lost in thinking, then we get lost in thinking. We get lost in planning or problem solving. That isn't a problem. We simply notice that our attention has wandered off the meditation into thinking and remind ourselves that we're here, we're present, and we're focusing on the breath. And we can let go of any controlling or managing of the breath. We don't need to count anymore. We can allow the natural rhythm of the breath to return. This is an opportunity now to come a little bit deeper into the body and notice how the body feels as we exhale. Noticing the letting go of the breath is a natural relaxation response. Can we fully surrender to that exhale? Allowing the shoulders to soften, the belly to soften. Maybe even the face, the scalp, the jaw. Releasing any unnecessary tension with every exhale. And we can scan through the body, scanning and noticing where we feel the most obvious sensation. Might be a discomfort, it might simply be the weight of our bums on the chair, might be the contact of clothing. It can be anything, and we just notice that, notice its presence. Not trying to change it, just curious. Noticing the changing nature of the sensations. And expanding our awareness to include the whole body. Can we get a feel of what it's like to be here with the whole body in this space? Allowing our bodies to be exactly as they are. Noticing the body and the space around the body, which includes the room that we're in, includes any noises, any sounds coming in. And allowing them to be and to move and to change as well. And here really is where we come to rest. We come to rest with an awareness of the breath, an awareness of the body, awareness of the space that we're in. And of course, noticing as soon as we can when the mind has trailed off into thinking land, into imagination. Noticing how convincing that is, how tempting and enticing it is to think. But we don't actually need it. We don't need it to be here. There's plenty enough going on without thoughts. Might be helpful just to give in to the labels of the mind, just to let go of any concepts, any words. Accepting any feelings of not quite getting it right, Noticing any thoughts that tell us we're too distracted or we're doing it wrong. This is all part of it. This is all part of that human software, that programming that we have. And the invitation is to tune in to any emotional energy that's present, any background feeling tone. Just open the door to it. Just acknowledge its presence here today. We may notice these as sensations. We might be more familiar with them as some kind of description in the mind. However it's appearing at the moment, even if there's a bit of a blankness or sort of mild confusion, then just allowing that to be part of our experience as well. There's no wrong answer to this. And can we breathe with that experience? Breathe alongside this emotion, this feeling. Riding the natural rhythm of the breath, whilst opening to whatever emotions are going on at the moment. It doesn't have to be an uncomfortable emotion. It might be that there's relaxation present, calmness. We can open to that experience as well. Just getting to know the nature of emotions, their presence in the body, their impact on the mind and thinking. And just breathing with that experience. breathing in and out of this experience. We can stay here. This is a great place to hang out. If you need to spend a little bit more time with this, or we can inquire. So we're scratching below the surface of this emotion and asking what am I believing in this moment? What am I believing about myself? About the world? About my situation? Maybe that nothing arises, and that's fine. We can just sit here and rest in this moment. Or we can ask, is that belief true? Is it necessary? Is it helpful for me to think and believe these things? So, wherever we are right now on our journey, it's making ourselves aware that we're approaching the end of the practice. We don't have to do anything else. We can really rest, let go of any doing, let go of any focusing, and just receive this next few moments in silence, however they appear. And to close the practice it's often helpful just to recognize that what we're doing here today is for the benefit of ourselves, but is also to the benefit of those that we know and love. It's also to the benefit of the people that we meet who we don't know. And in that way it ripples out all over and benefits the whole world. And using the sound of the bell just to bring us back into the group. Might be helpful to move the fingers and toes, have a little stretch. Take your time.